Welcome back to a special episode of To The Point. My guest is the Parliamentary Affairs Minister Venkaiah Naidu. In part one, we spoke about the Delhi election results and about the Prime Minister's speech on Tuesday, reassuring Christians. Now we turn to two other critical issues. The talks this government is having with the PDP to try and form a coalition government in Jammu and Kashmir, and of course, the forthcoming session of Parliament. Can those ordinances be converted into acts, or will they be allowed to lapse? Mr. Naidu, let's come to a third subject that is of importance. It is the talks that are going on between your party, the BJP, and the PDP to try and form a common minimum program so that you can form a coalition government in Jammu and Kashmir. Newspaper reports suggest that a lot of progress has been made, and yet there are said to be one or two areas which are still hurdles. I want to talk about one or two of them.
But I am sorry to say to you that I am not dealing with that subject. I am not even interfering in that, and that's being dealt by party functionaries at different level. And it comes to the conclusion that we brought before the parliamentary board, then we'll all come into the picture.
Absolutely. I'm only going to ask you broad questions where in fact it's not your actual knowledge of the details that matters, it's your stand on terms of principle that I'm questioning. One issue that the PDP is keen on is that the abrogation of Article 370 should be put on the back burner. Now, I know when you fought the election in Maharashtra in September, you willingly put statehood for Vidarbha on the back burner for 5 years, and it was an equally important issue of conviction. Can you do the same for Article 370?
Let us first wait for the outcome of the discussions, then only make comments. In between making comments, it's not my habit. And making out of turn comments also is no good for anybody.
But you seem to me to have an open mind. You don't have a closed mind. You're not saying immediately, no, this is out of the way.
See, I am not saying either yes or no. I am leaving it to the people who are negotiating it, who are part of the discussion. I have full confidence in their wisdom. They know the principles of the government and the party.
One other thing. When the BJP put Vidarbha on the back burner, you were indicating a certain willingness to adjust to a reality which you thought was important because coming to power was the first goal. How important is it for the BJP to be part of a government in India's only Muslim majority state?
I don't consider it like Muslim or a Hindu majority. Kashmir is an integral part of India. We have to take every steps to keep the same intact. And then we must do everything possible to have a democratically elected government in Kashmir. That is in the larger interest of the country. How do you go about it? Those details are being discussed. And then you must also understand, as you rightly said, you must understand the reality. What is the mandate of the people? No single party has been given majority. And some parties which have ruled and promised everything, they could not deliver. People rejected them. And these two parties have been given comparatively more mandate than others. That's why these two parties in the larger interest of the country, in the interest of the unity and integrity of the country, keeping in view the sensitivity of Kashmir, they are holding talks. I am sure they'll come to some meaningful conclusions. As I am not part of it on day-to-day basis, I don't want to comment at this stage on this.
Absolutely, and I won't ask you to comment on the details at all, but given the nature of the mandate, you swept Jammu, the PDP swept the valley. Is there any other government that's possible? That's A. And B, if you don't come together, isn't there a terrible danger that the two halves of the state will be divided?
That's why the efforts are on to form a coalition. You must see that country remains together. Kashmir is integral part of India. Jammu aspirations also kept in mind, because for long term, Jammu is feeling neglected, discriminated upon. That should be addressed also. At the same time, the concerns of the people of Valley, who have given a good amount of number of seats to the PDP, they also has to be kept in mind. How do you marry these two? That's for these negotiators who are discussing.
Mufti Muhammad Saeed, in an interview to The Hindu, has said that a Modi-Mufti alliance would send a very powerful message to the country. Secondly, he says, it would change the way minorities view Mr. Modi's government in Delhi, and it would change possibly the way the international community views the Indian government. Do you agree with that thinking?
I'm happy about what he has said. We are moving in that direction. Let us see what will happen.
There's one issue that I'd like to ask you about in principle. Again, you can't give me details. I'm not asking you to reveal what's actually going on behind closed doors. But it's the issue of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. This is an emotional issue for the PDP. They want immediate withdrawal from certain parts, and then they want complete withdrawal within a year. The BJP, on the other hand, says that the army must be consulted because it's a stakeholder. And you know and I know that the army is not just against complete withdrawal, The army is against immediate withdrawal as well. Can you sort out AFSPA, or will that be a sticking point?
It's not the army which is a stakeholder in the entire country. Unity and integrity of Kashmir is non-negotiable. One. Secondly, even today, what is the reality? There are 40 camps, aided, abetted, funded, trained by our neighbor. It's a well-known international secret. That being the case, we cannot afford to withdraw APSPA from Kashmir totally. How do you go about it? How do you deal with that? Those nicety has to be worked. But it's a very important issue. It's a very dear issue to every Indian, not to Kashmir people alone, not to army alone. It's not an army's personal problem, it's a country's problem. So that being the case, we have strong views on that. And our people who are discussing with PDP, they will be able to make PDP to understand the importance of the forces to stay there for some time, till such time as till it is required. And then we move forward.
How confident are you that these people negotiating with the PDP will be able to make PDP understand this?
Either you make them understand or they make you understand, and let us try to understand each other, and then country understands better than both of us. That should be the principle.
But there is a third choice. It's not just you get them to understand you or you understand them. The third choice is you don't come to an understanding. Is there a danger that at the end of the day, a PDP-BJP government will not be possible because issues like Article 370 and AFSPA will divide?
There are differences among different political parties. Otherwise, why should there be this many number of parties? There are different views, different ideological this thing. The beauty of it is trying to narrow down the differences and then arrive at common minimum program and rule the state as per the mandate of the people. But my point is, these things are not debated in TV studios.
Absolutely.
They have to be discussed in closed door meeting, analyzed, understood, explained.
Are you confident of success?
I'm sure.
How much time do you give yourself?
I don't want to give any time, and I also ask you not to fix any time frame. It's a very delicate issue.
In other words, the media should give the PDP and BJP time.
Yes.
And not keep the focus of glare and publicity on them.
That's what I am appealing.
Let it happen behind closed doors. It's so important. Give us time and do it in a silent, quiet way.
That's what I am saying. And moreover, at the end of the day, everything will be made public.
My last issue, and it's to do in fact with the fact that in 4 days from today, the Parliament session convenes. Many people believe that after the Delhi election results, your government has its back to the wall. As
Why?
Parliamentary Affairs Minister, are you anticipating a difficult session?
Why? No, who is the person who is going to stand in front of me in Parliament and then accuse me? Which party which has won the election in Delhi? Congress? Left? Samajwadi? BSP? Or TMC? What is it these people have got to do with the Delhi election? The moment they talk of Delhi election, the situation will be otherwise. My point is, opposition did not allow the Parliament to function, Rajya Sabha particularly in last time. And then there is so much of this thing across the country. People are thinking that we must function effectively, discuss, debate and decide rather than disrupt. I appeal to the opposition parties once again, please let us discuss, debate. I propose, you oppose, let the House dispose. That should be the idea.
Except for the fact that the opposition has been emboldened by the fact that the BJP not only lost Delhi but was left with just 3 seats, and that strengthens them, and now they believe...
How it will strengthen them? They lost miserably. So I don't think at all they are not that much wise enough not to understand this. This is again a wrong notion. They have done it earlier. This time they will understand. Country wants development. People want development. People want good governance. In that direction, if they want to oppose, they are free to oppose. Nothing wrong.
People say the real test of this parliamentary session will be whether you can get support in the Rajya Sabha for the critical ordinances that you want to convert into acts. And I'm talking in particular about insurance, land acquisition, coal and mining. Can you get those ordinances converted into acts?
I am trying my best. We have already drafted the bills approved by the cabinet. They are going to be brought before the parliament, and it is as per the constitution, you have to place them before parliament, get approval within the 6 weeks of placing it before the parliament. That is somewhere around first week of April. So that being the case, I am discussing with opposition parties, and then I am trying to urge upon them, you please support us. If you don't want to support, oppose also, no problem. Let there be a constructive debate, and let the House decide.
But you know how you began your answer? I am trying my best.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound very confident.
The question is, how can you take anybody for granted? But I am not doubting them also. It's in a democracy, I can only appeal. I can't force anybody.
But you know the problem, and I'll take land acquisition to illustrate that problem. It's not just the opposition parties in parliament who are against that particular ordinance. It's said in the newspapers that elements of the RSS and the Bharatiya Kisan Sangh are against it. Many of them plan to hold protests, dharnas, demonstrations in Delhi. Can you stand up to your own people,
The people
objecting?
see there will be different viewpoints of different organizations. Sometimes there will be divergent views also. But we are in the government, we are in better know of things, and we have to handle the situation. Country needs growth, country needs industrialization, country needs business in order to create wealth and then distribute among the people, and also to eradicate poverty. You need industrialization, you need growth. That is the need of the hour. That's why we are doing this, and there is no question of hurting the interest of the farming community at all. BJP is the first party to safeguard the interest of the farmers. There is no question of forced land acquisition also.
Personally, I agree with everything you're saying, but my personal views don't count. Can you ensure that whatever influence or pressure comes from the BKS or the BMS or even from within the RSS doesn't, for instance, force you to dilute the land acquisition ordinance?
So there is no question of going back on this ordinance. We have studied it well, held extensive consultations. We held consultation with the state governments ruled by different political parties. Most of them have suggested, in fact, wanted this to come. And after that deliberation, sorry, we brought this. And let us now wait for the parliament session. If some meaningful suggestion comes and more constructive, meaningful suggestions come, the government will be open to such ideas.
But when you say there's no question of going back on the land acquisition ordinance, you're guaranteeing to me you will not dilute it to pass it.
No, the point is, if suppose a meaningful suggestion comes, why should I say now itself, I'm not going to accept any suggestion? In a democracy, that's not the way you do it.
But will you dilute it?
I'm not saying I'm diluting it. I'm open to constructive suggestions.
Most people feel that these ordinances will only become acts if you hold a joint session of parliament. Are you prepared to do that?
See, the moment somebody talks of joint session, the other parties will start to say, you are doubting us, you are doubting us, you are bypassing us and all.
But the other parties are already saying they won't pass these ordinances. Yeah, Congress has made that clear.
That's the unfortunate thing. And some parties also said we don't even allow this thing to function also. And then they said we'll go on sending it to committees.
So I come back to my question.
No, you are right in raising your question. My point is, when we speak of joint sitting, there is no joint session like that. Please try to understand. There is only joint sitting of parliament. This is again a wrong notion that's going on across the country. The joint sitting option is available in the Constitution. That only has been quoted some time back. We didn't speak about joint sitting so far. We have not come to that situation. We still have confidence that we'll be able to convince our friends in the opposition and get these ordinances converted into laws. Let us wait.
But if you don't get them converted into laws, then are you at least mentally prepared for a joint sitting?
I am not willing to join the academic debate. Everybody knows what is the constitutional provision, and some of the opposition friends, they know better than me because they have been in power for long.
2-3 technical questions, because you're Parliamentary Affairs Minister and you can actually shed light on this. Is one joint sitting of Parliament sufficient to clear all the pending ordinances, or do you need a separate joint sitting for each ordinance?
I don't want to get into this discussion at all. Then my friends will say, see, he's already threatening us by saying that he'll call a joint sitting. He's saying
no, but I'm only asking you to clarify.
I don't want to. Why should I have this academic discussion now, Karanji? We can discuss it later. You know better. There are enough studies on it, enough precedents also on that.
It seems to people that you're not answering because the answer would be an awkward one from your point of view. Isn't that why you're not answering?
It's not a question of awkward. It's efficacy. In democracy, you must always have confidence in the system and then try to exhaust it till such time you need to go for another alternative.
Except, Mr. Naidu, I was asking you a question not just out of curiosity, but to clear a simple factual point for the audience. Do we need a joint sitting for each ordinance, or can one joint sitting handle all the ordinances? It's a factual question.
I will tackle it as I come to face such situation. There is no need to debate and discuss it now.
My final question.
I am a Parliamentary Affairs Minister. I have a dual responsibility to take the House along with me and also carry forward the government business.
So clearly in the answer to the question I've posed 2 or 3 times lies something that would embarrass you if you gave the answer.
It's not a question of embarrassing, it's a question of efficacy. Being a Parliamentary Affairs Minister, you must be always giving the benefit to the Parliament rather than doubting them and then talking about the alternative.
My last question. If by, say, the 5th, 6th of April, which is the cut-off point, you are unable to convert these ordinances into acts, what happens? Will you then reissue ordinances?
I'm not doubting at all. Reissuing ordinance, there is a provision, there is a precedent that I don't want to talk
I'll
now.
tell you why I asked the question, because you began by saying, I will try my best. That's not a guarantee of success. So I'm then saying to you, if you don't succeed, will you reissue the ordinances or will you let them lapse?
If you say now, then you will say the government is arrogant. They don't bother about parliament. They are already predetermined. Why should I give scope for such
It's not
criticism?
arrogance. You see, some companies, one example would be, in fact, those who want to invest in Max Bupa have already announced that they will increase their level of investment in insurance up to 49%. They've announced it, it's been public. Now, if the ordinance lapses, what happens to that commitment by Bupa to go up to 49% in Max Bupa?
The spirit of the law will continue. By what means? Let us wait for the parliament.
What about people who want to use the land acquisition ordinance or the coal block ordinance to invest, to put money in, to create jobs? Don't they need some assurance that you will reissue?
They have full assurance the law will continue.
Even if the ordinance isn't passed?
Why should I doubt anybody?
So what you're saying to me, and I'm reading between the lines, I'm not going to give you a clear answer, but equally you're giving me an assurance to these investors that the law will continue.
So my point is, don't try to read in between the lines and don't make it a headline. Our line is very clear, the law will continue.
All right, Mr. Naidu, that will have to be the answer. The audiences will have to interpret it for themselves. But I'll ask you to repeat it one more time. The law will continue as far as all these ordinances are concerned.
That is the conviction of the government.
Mr. Naidu, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.